that, what we did here is we made an inside curve, okay, right there, and we've got an outside curve right here. And we're going to put them together to make the whole curve, of course. Now, first thing we got to do is I got to show you how to make it. Again, we're using 2x6 material. We laminate all of our 3/4 inch stock. You can see where it's laminated here, but we're going to laminate this. So we're going to show you how to make this cove cut on the table saw next. Okay, cutting that cove on that first piece of wood, we're going to use, this is our new radius, 3/8 inch radius cove cutter. And it's just a little hunk of steel here, and it's got a 3/8 inch radius, cuts a cove. You can use this for a lot of things, for cutting crown molding and a lot of stuff. But I'll show you how it works. We're going to mount it in here. It comes with this backer plate. And you're snug, we're ready to go. Okay, bigger throat on there. Now, when I start cutting this, when we start cutting this cove right here, I'm going to crank it up so she's just a little bit above. I always like to find the center of my arbor, my center of my arbor, okay? And that's where I'm going to put this. And we're going to run this way on the saw. When we turn that saw on, we're going to run this thing through like this. Now, if you don't want this curve this big, you want a smaller, tighter curve, well, then we're going to take and we'll run it through at an angle like this, okay? But we're going to get as big a curve as we can coming through like this. Okay, to do that now, again, like I said, what you want to do, here's what we're going to cut the cove in, right in here. We're going to put that down, eyeball the center. We're going to clamp a fence right here, and we're going to put another fence right here. Okay, to make sure those are in there straight, I always like to take my miter gauge, center my board, clamp it right there. We're going to come right here. Okay. I'm going to clamp on the edge here. I'm at 90. We're tight. Okay. Some guys will just use one board here too. You don't have to use the other one, but if you feel safer, put the other one in there. Okay, this one here, I get it all lined up. I'm going to screw it right into my table here. Okay, we can run that thing through. Now, if you want to put this one up on top, you can. Some guys feel a little bit better to have both of these in. Now, before you screw that down, lower your blade, make sure you're coming through here. Okay, see that right there? We're a little snug right there. We don't want to have any problems. So let's come down here. Right there. Okay. Again, now we're going to put 2 screws here. Check her for tightness. Sliding nice there. A little bit tight hip in this side again, okay? So let's back that out. Right there, now she's sliding good. Okay, we're going to cut the cove. Now, what we want to do is crank that blade up until she hits the stock. You'll know it when it hits it. Right there. Just enough. We're just going to take a hair off, and what we're doing, we're just raising that blade a little bit each time. Okay, so we'll come into here, make our first cut. See, barely cut it. Move it up a little bit. Okay. You keep raising that blade up, making your cuts until your stock, until you're through the first piece of stock, the first layer, until then you're going to be deep enough. Okay. So I'll continue doing that till I'm there. Okay. Okay, you can see we're right through that first layer of wood, right where it's laminated. Okay, nice radius there, nice radius. Okay. Fact is, if you look at it right here, we went a little bit too deep, So you don't want to go through that first piece. Luckily, this is a piece of scrap, but I went a little bit too deep there, and I showed the second piece of wood doesn't match. So you only want to go deep enough so you don't see that second layer of wood, and the grain's not going to match. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut those 245s right next to that cove. Okay, we've got our piece here now. We're going to take and cut those 245s on here. Now, I'm going to show you. I'm going to tilt this piece over. You can see what we got. Here's our cove. We're going to cut a 45 here and a 45 right there, if you want to study that for. Here's our face frame, and here's our rounded edge we're going to attach it to. So we got to cut those 245s, and we want to start cutting right at where the cove starts. I'm going to bring this piece in here, right here, and I'm going to mark it for you, show you right here. Right where that cove comes and starts, that's where we want to take that 45 and cut right there. Okay, I got my saw blade set. We're going to come down here, and we're going to cut those 245s. Okay, that's our cove right here, and there's our 245s, and you can see how it's playing into this piece. Eventually, we're going to have to cut 2 more 45s on there, but for right now, that's good. Our face frame can take off right here. If this is our face frame coming right into here, then our next, this is the inside curve, our outside curve here. So we're ready to take our outside curve now. And when we do that, we want to take another 2x6 to cut that. Okay, here's our cove. We got our 245s cut. Now, the next thing we want to do is what I did is I cut a little sample of this off. And I want this inside curve to match the outside curve. I've got an outside curve already kind of halfway done for you. But we cut a 45 on another 45. But you can see what I want to do is lay that on there. So what I'm going to do, here's what we're going to do. This is going to go onto here. And I'm going to lay that on here. First of all, I'm just going to draw it. And then I'm going to show it to you. We're going to line it up for the first layer of wood right there. Okay, there's our outside curve. You can see it right there. Now, where that outside curve ends, you can get an exact measurement. Wherever it ends, we're going to cut a 45 there and cut a 45 right here. Okay? So that tells us where to cut those 45s. And remember, lay the top of that on the inside. Here's my lamination right here. So lay that curve up on top of here from here, and wherever they end, there's where we're going to cut our 45s. So we'll set our saw blade up and cut those 45s next. Okay, I made some practice cuts in here, and we've got that cut out so it's right coming where we want to come. So we're going to cut our two 45s. Okay, right here's our inside curve, and that's where we're going to join with our outside curve right there. Okay, now what we need to do next is take and cut another 45 so it looks like this here. We're going to come into here, and I'm going to cut a 45, 13/16, 13/16. Come into here and cut a 45 there and a 45 there. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'll end up having that, right like that. Will be right like that. Okay? So we're going to cut those two 45s coming across this way so we have 13/16 here. All right. Okay, we've got our two 45s cut. Now, right there is where they're going to combine. They're going to go, we'll screw those together right there. Okay? And now, what we need to do is make, it's going to go right like that. It's hard to hold these. Inside curve, outside curve. What we need to do now is cut this right in here. Cut a 45 here to help us start making that outside curve. Okay, we're ready to start, like I said earlier, we're ready to start and cut a 45 on this outside curve here. Well, I did that over here, you can see. And a 45 isn't good enough because this is a wide piece here. So what we need to do is cut as much of this meat off here as possible. A 45 doesn't do it. We're going to come into here, and I want to cut as close to my line as I can. And how did I get that line? Again, I cut the top of this off, remember, and I laid it onto here. See, that's the curve, outside curve we want. So the inside and outside curves match. So what we want to do is set our saw blade up so we can get as close to that line without interfering it as possible and take as much of this meat off as we can. We want to get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to set our saw blade up and do that, however we have to do it. Okay, we said we had to get it done no matter how we do it. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 45. Instead of coming up at an angle and trying to cut it out like this, what I'm going to do is lay that flat. There's so many different ways you can cut this. I'm going to lay it flat, and you can see I made a practice cut there. I'm going to get as close. I got a little bit left out in here, but I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm going to come into here now and cut these two 45s here. Okay, now you can see what we're doing here. We're starting to make that look round, and it's going to come attach into here, and that's going to be our inside-outside curve right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take where these join right here. I'm going to take a 45 here and a 45 here, and we'll do that next. Okay, You can see what I was doing there. I was moving that fence in until I got this width here matching this width right in here. So there's going to be my inside-outside curve right there. And right out here is my face frame of my cabinet coming in. And the next thing we're going to do is attach the face frame to here. So what we have to do, we're in the process right now, is join these two pieces together. And the way I'm going to join these two pieces together is I'm going to find the center of this piece right here, of course. Now I'm going to drill some pilot holes all the way through. About every 3 or 4 inches all the way down, we're going to drill some pilot holes. Okay, we drilled some holes in there, right 90 degrees to there. Now we're going to come back in here. I've already set this up. We're going to countersink these holes. Set that stop collar so you don't go too deep. And you can see up here at the top, we drilled 2 of them really close together. And I'll explain you'll see what happens when we do that. Okay, so now we are ready to attach our cove and our round right like this. And we're going to take some 1.5-inch face frame screws and screw from here into here. And when we do, you want to get this as close as you can. If anything, have the cove coming back, because it's easier to sand this than it would be the inside of the cove. So we're going to come into here and glue it and screw this right now. Okay, we got the 2 screw holes here. I'm going to use the bottom one. Put my 1.5-inch face frame screw in there. And I'm going to line this up. And I'm not going to put any glue in there yet. But I'm going to try and screw this in here and get those matching there as close as I can. You just got to kind of squirt the thing in there. Okay, now, the reason we put 2 screws there is because once you have a screw in here, then this thing is pretty well set for you. So we're going to use that as a temporary screw. I'm out a little bit higher than I want to be right there. Okay? So now I'm going to get my second screw down here. I'm going to get it lined up right where I want it. Right there. And it's going to stay because this screw is kind of holding it. So now I can take my second screw right here. I'm flushing the inside. Okay, that's solid now. Okay, I've got a good joint there. So now I'm going to back this screw out. That was just a starter screw. Okay, now I can take all the screws out, glue the joint, put that screw in. I know it's dead on, and then I'll continue screwing all the rest of them. Okay, I always like to put a lot of glue right where the joint's going to meet, especially right here is where it's going to meet. So I want to get that, make sure that glue's out there for sure on that outside edge. Okay. This is the screw we had that's going to meet. We know it's going to go dead perfect for us. So I can even start it like this. Line up the screw holes and finish it. And you can see how that glue squirts out there all right away. Now, that's set really good. I'm going to move it down here. And when you're doing this for real, I would say every 6 inches or so is plenty for your screws. Okay, we've only got 2 there. What I'm going to do here, there's our inside and outside curve. Face frame and face frame. Okay, you're going to say, now how are we going to get rid of the rest of this? Okay, I'll show you that later. Okay, there's how we do it, the old-fashioned way. Takes a lot of work, Okay, now, remember that piece we cut off of here? You keep sanding on this. Now, you can take a hand plane if you want to plane that and you knock it down a little bit. Find the center here, but you want this here to fit right over there. So you can see how much I got to sand. And believe it or not, this one here, this whole little prop here took me about 10 minutes to sand. I took this here, you can see this curve, and it had to match right there. You know, so it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to sand it and get it rounded, that nice shape and everything. You know, and it's kind of therapeutic. Okay, here's a piece that we made for this cabinet right here, and you can see what's happening. This is the face frame, and this is the face frame right here. The style and the style, and you can see we just pocket screwed that face frame into that inside